All right, the time is 6 o'clock. I will call to order the August 27th meeting of the Huxley City Council. Roll call, please.
Murphy,
Here.
Mulder, Rigler,
Here.
Etcher,
Here.
Roberts. Here. Let the record show Mulder.
Thank you very much. Need a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Give you a motion.
Let the record show Mulder.
A motion by Rigler, second by Murphy. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please respond with aye.
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 All those opposed, same sign. Abstentions, none. Motion carries. Now is the time in the agenda for public comment. Is there anybody in the public this evening wishing to speak on any non-agenda items? Seeing no one rise, we will move along. I need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Now is the time in the agenda for public comment. Motion by Etcher,
Second.
second by Roberts. Any questions or discussion?
I would just note.
Any questions or discussion?
That permit is for that event that's taking place that day. So you've got an idea of where it's at and the space that they're utilizing.
Good, thank you very much. Any other questions? Seeing none, roll call, please.
Etcher,
Yes.
Rigler,
Yes.
Roberts. Yes. Murphy.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Item 5A on the agenda tonight is Resolution 24061 regarding Bayer Crop Science use of the Ballard Creek property pending a rezoning process. Need a motion on this?
Make a motion.
I have a motion by Etcher.
I can second.
I have a second by Mr. Rigler. Dave, you want to give us an overview here?
Yeah, I will. Amy put together a resolution that will allow Bear to bring in about 15 people here in September to stay at Ballard Creek. I did talk with the attorney that's representing the sellers and indicated that they'll need to get the rezoning process started. We have sent them the paperwork. It talked about the sidewalk and the parking. And I know one of the things within the resolution, it talked about that being done by January. Because it isn't currently zoned R3, they're not required to have the more parking. So you may be asked, kind of like what I think had happened with Mr. Jensen, that if it gets to the point that that parking is needed, that they will put that parking in. But I also understand that part of that lot to the south, between Ballard Creek and Casey's, they're going to rezone a piece of that as R3, the back, probably the east side, the back east part, which would be additional parking for that facility when it becomes necessary. So I would fully expect them to, as we go through the rezoning process, they'll probably want to talk a little bit about the parking. I did indicate though the sidewalk was, was one of those things that was going to need to be taken care of as soon as possible. So, and I asked if there were any, issues or problems from his clients to let me know, and everything must be good. I haven't heard anything back, and they've had the resolution for about a week and a half. So.
Any further questions? Seeing none, I've got a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Rigler,
Yes.
Roberts. Yes. Murphy,
Yes.
Etcher.
Yes.
Thank you. 5B this evening is Resolution 24062, authorizing an internal transfer of funds regarding the splash pad.
I'll just kind of touch on all three of these.
I give you a motion.
Oh, sorry.
Yep. Motion by Roberts,
Second.
second by Etcher.
Sorry about that. I'll just kind of touch on all three of these. As you recall, last fall, we did a plan amendment to our urban renewal area to basically set up money for the splash pad. We're putting together an economic development local business support program, which is kind of a grant program. We're doing $120,000 a year for a matching grant up to $30,000 per project for 5 years. And then we have the administration and professional support that puts $100,000 back into the general fund for the work that Barbara and I spend working with the TIF. You're doing the internal advance on all of these this evening. We do have, after conferring with our financial advisor, Chip Schultz, we have enough TIF that's been collected so far that we'll do the internal advance and we'll utilize those TIF dollars this year to backfill those internal advances. Now, with the 2 projects other than splash pad, we will have to certify those debts this fall to certify for 26. So, but I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Can we have an update on the next council meeting for the splash pad and what it's going to cost?
Yes, we'll make sure you have something.
Thank you.
Just to clarify what we're looking at here, then, not necessarily spending the money, but we're marking the money as restricted for these purposes
That
for
would
a
be-
later date.
That would be correct. Yeah,
Okay.
you will still, I mean, each of these, I mean, like the splash pad, you're gonna have to approve the contracts, you're gonna have to approve, you know, those agreements. The same with the grant program. Anybody that would apply for those grants, those grant documents will come back to the council. You will have to agree to fund that or not to fund it.
So we're absolutely right. We're not funding, we're just restricting.
Yeah, we're doing an internal advance to kind of get the program set up, so we'll be able to utilize it. But but each of these do come back before you to be finalized.
Any further questions? We're just doing splash pad. Yep. Roll call, please.
Roberts? Yes. Murphy?
Yes.
Etcher?
Yes.
Rigler?
Yes.
Thank you very much. 5C this evening is resolution 24063. Again, internal advance regarding economic development. Need a motion, please. Give you a motion. Motion by Rigler,
Second.
second by Etcher. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Roberts? Yes. Murphy?
Yes.
Etcher?
Yes.
Rigler?
Yes.
Thank you. 5D this evening is resolution 24064. Again, an internal advance regarding administration.
Make a motion.
Motion by Etcher,
Second.
second by Mr. Rigler. No questions. Roll call, please.
Murphy?
Yes.
Etcher?
Yes.
Rigler?
Yes.
Roberts? Yes.
All right, department reports. Your packet did include department reports. If there's any additional comments that staff would like to make, just ask that you come to the lectern. If there's any additional comments that staff would like to make, just ask you.
I'm saying that poke you.
There we go. Okay. Okay, I just wanted to bring you up to date with our remodel project. The Library Board of Trustees has entered into an oral contract agreement with Ike & Day Contractors. Nothing is in writing yet as we are still negotiating some price on things. But we should have that by the end of this week, a signed contract with an exact figure. So to say I'm excited is an understatement. One of the question I have for you is, part of the plan is an outside entrance into the hallway upstairs so that the room can be utilized outside of library hours. That wall is the stainless steel siding. So one of the questions they had was to simplify that doorway. Can we peel off that stainless steel in a section It would be from, there's a light coming out of the wall. It would incorporate that light onto the, up to the elevator to where that becomes sheetrock in a doorway. It simplifies their process and would probably be a lot more aesthetically pleasing on that wall.
What kind
But
of,
that's a building that's outside of our library, so I wanted to put
what
that
kind
to
of
you.
width and what kind of dimensions are we talking? Roughly? Is it 10 foot?
About 6 feet.
Oh.
With the doorway. The doorway is close to the elevator as we can. Get.
Any other departments wishing to speak this evening? Okay, thank you. Amy, you're good? All right, Barb?
Just Steve Gertis and I are beginning work on the fiscal year 24 audit.
It's gonna be, it's gonna be earlier in the past couple of years, so staff is really excited about getting this done.
And maybe we won't have near as many findings as the past.
Yeah,
I'm hoping that it'll be a lot cleaner than it has been in the past, so I am excited.
there are definitely some things that are gonna be going away, the things that were asked of us to clean up, so. The only other thing I would mention is I'm still, I got some information regarding Main Street. I've got a little more digging to do that I want to do in the next week regarding Chris's request. I heard some things last Friday, but I'm going to do some digging into some abstracts and things and try to find some old plans, and hopefully we'll have a recommendation for you at the next meeting.
It's mentioned in Kathy's report, but I'm just gonna plug that Anxious Generation book that you had the reading club about. I thought it was informative, not just for people with kids, but with technology. So plug the library report.
I just want, I don't know where to bring this up, so I want to relook at sidewalks on East Fourth, where I think we had a huge miss when we did the storm sewer and didn't put sidewalks in. We put all the pads in, so I just want to figure out how to bring that forward.
Just a couple things from me this evening. I want to thank staff for all of their work on Prairie Fest. I know PD had, of course, a ton of officers down there, so thank you for that. And parks and streets, it had a lot of hours into that, so I certainly appreciate that. The city looked great for that. The park looked nice, so I appreciate everybody's help on that. The second thing, Keith, I don't think I've seen you at a meeting in a few weeks, so I want to thank you for your work between you and Peterson. We had some issues at the water treatment plant, the water plant, maybe a month ago now. Was it that long ago? All right. It's been a bit, couple months. So I appreciate the work that you and your staff did. Made a lot of efforts down there, and probably got a little lucky along the way too, but appreciate your help on that. So. Yep. Last thing for council. I know we just started a new fiscal year. However, we need to start looking at the next budget. And really the first step in that is a goal setting process. And we've talked about doing that internally. I think that's a fair way to start. Give it a shot internally. My question for you, council members, is do you want to do that on an off Tuesday night? Do you want to do that after a council meeting? Do you want to do that on a Saturday? What's your pleasure?
No, sir.
Okay, that's what I'm asking. uh, prior to that. So that's going to give you roughly 4 weeks here to come up with a list of what's important to you. What priorities do you want to accomplish? Or goals do you want to accomplish? What priorities do you have? We'll start from there and hash it out. So if you could work on that, make sure that that's a work session item, I guess a special work session after that, and we'll proceed accordingly.
We'll send out some dates and see like if a Wednesday or Thursday, I don't know. Some towns, church night is Wednesday night, so I've had councils that won't meet on Wednesdays, so, but I don't know what. I don't know if Wednesday or Thursdays are better for folks, but. Okay,
We could do a morning, any morning at 6, 5, 4, 3.
All right. Thank you very much. That concludes our regular work this evening, our regular business items. We do have some work session items this evening. The first item on the agenda is fireworks. Perfect. Yep. Appreciate that. If you want to kick this one off, Nate.
Well, sure. I gave you those, basically all those other cities, and you supplemented it too with what they do and how they proceed. And quite honestly, I don't have too much of an opinion on it. We didn't take too many calls. I imagine you guys went out in your neighborhoods and asked kind of what the feeling of the city is. So quite honestly, my officers and I, we don't have an opinion on this. And we kind of noticed that, and me living here too, I don't know if everybody else noticed it, but it seemed like the fireworks pretty much died around 10:30-ish or something like that. I thought they did a fairly good job of observing the 10 o'clock. But whatever council wishes, we have no opinion on the matter.
Can I ask a couple questions real quick? Maybe you know, maybe you don't. What is Story County's rule on fireworks? Yeah, I tried to look that up too, and I couldn't really find that they had a rule on fireworks as a county.
I bet they go state code.
Yeah, is where I was gonna guess also. Second of all, what is the time frame that they sell fireworks? Does anybody know?
It begins June 1st.
I'll have to look it up, but that's at least a month.
Anybody know?
I guess I'm looking at oh, sweet, the spreadsheet's up there. I wasn't looking at that screen versus mine. I took the pulse too. I heard I asked people if they were aware of what Slater and Cambridge did, because I have coworkers in Slater and Cambridge, and Ballard as a whole kind of gets lumped together a lot. There were several people who weren't aware that there were differences between the two, but as we can see, there are. I got your feedback. There were some other people, yeah, up and down the street or at the festivals. I do think dogs were a huge contributing factor. That was a reoccurring thing I heard, is a lot of the people who would be fine scaling it back have dogs. I fall in that pool. I personally, looking at the comparison between our Ballard neighbors and really across the list, would be fine scaling it back to 3 or 4 days versus the full week. I don't know if that makes a difference for you enforcement wise. It sounds like you don't get a lot of stragglers, but maybe if it's down to 3 or 4 days, you just have people on, a day on either side versus it being a week and you're seeing it for 9 or 10 days. But I sympathize with that. So I guess I would be proposing we scale it back to the 4th and a day or 2 on either side versus the full week.
So the only thing I would say, thank you for saying that, because I'm not opposed to scaling it back a little bit either, but the reason we went to these days was when it ends up in the middle of a week, people are wanting to light up on weekends and have a party. So I think we were just like 3 or 4 days, and then we extended it to the week to catch that. I haven't heard anything either way. The only thing that was swaying me was, do we just need to be more in alignment with our neighboring communities, which would be maybe the 3rd, 4th, 5th. So I don't think you have a strong opinion from anybody.
I appreciate that. I do want to give the public an opportunity to speak on this if they so choose. Okay. You want to give the public an opportunity to speak on this if they so choose.
Well, and to Rory and Tracy's point, so if Cambridge has two, Slater's got four, that's where I don't remember which of you said it now, if it's the third, fourth, and fifth.
Yeah.
I felt like that's pretty happy compromise. We do have someone here representing a community who vocalized it, and I joked with Nate the other day, there were kids hot rodding up and down Ballard, and it's the first time I've called the non-emergency line, and it wasn't because I wanted to get anybody in trouble. It's because someone threw something at a vehicle, and I was like, I don't want someone to get run over. So I think there's a hesitance to call the police over, a nuisance versus something that's an emergency sometimes. So I don't know that that's the only way to gauge the pulse. So yeah, I would be in favor of scaling it back to compromise between Slater and Cambridge.
Number of days was certainly a topic of conversation. The hours is kind of a secondary conversation as well. Does anybody find shooting fireworks off at 9 a.m. to be necessary? I mean, I'm just asking.
But it's really, is it gonna hassle anybody at 9 o'clock in the morning?
I
mean, everybody
I don't know.
should be up.
I'm just asking the question because use them up, shoot them up. Okay, I don't seem to get a lot of support for changing the hours, which is fine. I'm just asking the question, so. It does seem to be at least some level of support to modify the days. I think what I'm hearing is maybe July 3, 4, 5. And I think I'm hearing at least 2 council members, which is my barometer there. So I would ask that this be put on a future council agenda, indicating the 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
January.
And no January, unless somebody really is, yeah, not currently, and I'm not, yeah, so. Yeah. Yeah.
One to clarify, they can still request a fireworks permit like what they do for graduation, right?
Right, and maybe we should talk that too, maybe with council approval, they could do some sort of a special thing.
Special use permit.
Yeah. Thanks for mentioning that.
Okay, you got direction on that one, David? All right. Thank you all very much for your input on that. Item B on the work session is parking regulations. Chief?
I guess, just like with the fireworks, I don't really have an opinion on a lot of things. I just kind of want to clarify a few things and maybe shore up our code a little bit better. So there's been a few complaints or people asking me about essentially parking their vehicles on the grass, in the side yard, in the backyard. Do they have to have concrete? Do they have to have gravel, whatnot? And it's actually not a very easy find in our code. You have to go into the zoning section and this, that, and the other. And I kind of wanted to just clarify it and make it a little bit easier so that way I can tell either the complainants or we'll just say the nuisance, why I'm either enforcing or not enforcing. You can see from our code that I kind of highlighted. That way I can tell the nuisance why I'm either enforcing or not enforcing. From our code that kind of highlighted. So like I said, I don't care to create or make more or less. I just want to clarify. And when I saw Cambridge's ordinance, it was very clear. Like I said, I don't care to create or make more or less. I just want to clarify. When I saw Cambridge's ordinance, it was very clear.
Doesn't the
So the problem is when you have a 350 truck and a trailer, depending on the size of the trailer, it's also a Class A requirement for the driving that vehicle. So you basically have to have a Class A CDL. The other problem is what you're talking about is the people doing construction, living in there. They're also hindering their neighbors parking by parking on the street and having their equipment there. And it doesn't allow, because I've had people call me on this. It's like, I can't even back out of my drive because they're parked there. So the code is there for a reason. And if we change that, we're hindering people that also live in the neighborhoods. So I think we gotta be very careful about changing the code or enforcing the code because it does affect other people that live in there. And we had like a year ago, we had the individual that had a business in his community, was parking on the corner all the time, and with a trailer. And so I think we just got to be very careful about changing things and also enforcing things on this situation because the code was there for a reason.
Yeah, and I agree with that, but I'm just saying, if you read the code.
I think we just got to be very careful about changing things, enforcing things. The code was there for a reason.
So you have to bring your property up to code.
I don't think that's the case, because when you change the parking violation, or parking ordinance, when you change the ordinance, it's not grandfathered in.
But if you're changing zoning,
We're not changing zoning, we're talking about ordinances.
Talking about the park.
We're not changing zoning, we're talking about ordinance. So what they're talking about there is for the Class A CDL. Yeah, yes, so when it goes over a certain weight between the truck and the trailer, then it has to have.
and our code doesn't specify that. Our code is very vague on what it is. Is all I'm saying.
I agree with you, Nate. Our code is very vague. We probably need to work on that, but I just caution us on changing a lot of things that will affect a lot of people. I agree with you. Our code is very vague. Just caution us on changing a lot of things that will affect a lot of people. We also have a code that, was it a 48-hour code?
Yes.
I believe. So if the vehicle isn't moved within 48 hours, it's marked and so forth, such and such. There's a lot of different codes you can use in parking to change different philosophies of how you're gonna cite somebody.
But a lot of our stuff with parking, like Nate says, comes back to it's not in the actual parking code as much as it's in the ordinance.
Yeah, there's-
You know, as far as like, does it need to be gravelled or does it need to be
Yeah.
concrete
That's
for
for your,
parking,
Right,
that
right.
kind of aspect?
for your home, yeah, and then with the street part, that's somewhat clear. I just want to know if we wanted to continue the practice of either, I hate to say non-enforcement, but that's what it is. Or do you want to continue, or do you want to start a new practice? Now with this other one, that's more of a municipality, it's more of a civil infraction where we don't really have a clear, where can you park your trailer if you don't want to park it on the street? Can you have it on your side yard without anything laid beneath it? Can you have it in your backyard? And as it sits now, yeah, you can. You just can't park it in your front yard without any Portland cement underneath it. I just wanted to get the council's thoughts on, do we want Portland cement under everything as the code reads, or are we cool with the side yard move where people lay down gravel and they just put the trailer there? Or do we want to just nothing, just, hey, if it's your backyard or side yard, go for it, enjoy it.
Okay.
Just kind of seeing what this council would want to do about that.
Yep, perfect. So let's focus just on that piece of it here. We're talking about a number of things, but yeah, thanks for breaking that out. Whether it's a RV or a boat or a vehicle, do you want hot mix asphalt or Portland cement underneath that, or is grass or rock acceptable?
So I think we need to determine side yard and front yard. Because I believe, if I remember correctly, Ames's city ordinance was anything from basically in front of the house was considered front yard. Anything to the side or back was considered basically side or backyard. They also had a fence ordinance in reference to the parking and so forth. But Ames was very clear, if it wasn't concreted, and Tracy and I talked about this before, I don't care if it's gravelled or concrete or asphalt, if that's something we need to work on, but just parking in the front yard, you're gonna cause a problem there because people are just gonna leave vehicles. And then we're gonna have neighbors complaining that we have vehicles just sitting there for months, years, or longer in the front yard and do you want it in your
No,
neighborhood?
but the front yard to me is a moot point because it's pretty well clear that you can't do it.
It's not clear until you establish that in your ordinance. What is front yard? It's not clear until you establish that.
And I have looked at that issue, because those are all zoning issues, whether you allow parking in front yard, side yard, backyard, wherever, and whether you put the cement, require cement or gravel or whatever. I have not looked at those particular issues to see where we've got provisions in the code that may apply to those. But if they need to be clarified, we can sure do that, but that is a zoning code change that would need to be made, as opposed to the parking, which is the other thing Nick was talking about. Zoning, is not a zoning issue, that's a parking enforcement.
Right, because like Bud's, he's in a industrial area, so he doesn't have the ordinances that the residential.
Well, he still has ordinances.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, it's not, but
They're all different.
yeah, what she's saying is it's a zoning difference.
Yeah, I sat on planning and zoning, and I'm well aware that zoning has a difference of where you can park and what type of surface you have to have and the whole works, depending on what you're looking at.
So those questions are probably things that P and Z needs to be looking at if you're going to be making changes or want clarifications on those ordinances dealing with the parking in the yards and what you have.
And I have no feelings on it. I just want clarification. So I tell people why I am or am not doing enforcement.
So Nate, like, what I would say is like, I don't want you to, because, I mean, when I worked in Ames, I mean, we went out and wrote parking tickets all the time, and it was basically part of our job. I don't want that here. But I do want, if we do get complaints, let's do enforcement.
Reactive.
I mean, yeah, exactly. That's my opinion on it. But I do want, if we do get complaints, let's do enforcement. I mean, yeah, exactly. That's my opinion on it.
So
It couldn't be out to the road.
No.
But yeah.
I think it's mostly that move where people go on the side of their house, or the side of the garage, kind of extending their garage without extending the structure. That's what everybody's seen that. That's supposed to be.
If you're going to accept rock of some sort, my recommendation would be to require a minimum of 4 inches of compacted gravel. So you don't get someone just throwing out some stones and saying, that's my gravel.
Right, yeah, that's the other move. They'll put down a little paver.
Something, yeah.
So that'd be a little.
You don't get someone just throwing out some stones and gravel. Something, yeah.
Whatever the council.
For clarification, because I've heard a couple different things as well as yours. So for motorized vehicles, that's already pavement in the front. I think what I heard from a couple people on council was for non-motorized vehicles, one of the proposals was packed gravel or some sort of gravel for non-motorized.
Even a motorized, you could have RV in essence, it's motorized, it's parked on the side of the house right now.
Well, that's why I wanted to clarify, because the one example I heard was a trailer or a boat, which I guess a boat has a
Motorized,
motor.
and I think you get
but,
into the
yeah.
issues of the lawnmower is motorized, and now does it become motorized, and where do you call the line about?
Which I guess a boat has a motor, but yeah.
It's not motorized.
All right, so I'm looking for some general consensus here, so that we can bring this back. If I've got a couple council members that are leaning that direction. Is there any interest in requiring parking in the side and rear only on either 4 inches of crushed gravel or HMA or concrete?
I would suggest that we send it.
Parking in the side and rear only. Either 4 inches of crushed gravel or HMA.
Because
Well, that's fair. I'm seeing a couple heads nod, so I think we'll go that route. Chief, if you could proceed. Thanks, sir. Item C on the work session this evening is a potential change to payroll. Barb?
So right now, the pay period ends Friday when your shift ends. Time cards are received Monday morning. Our payroll person usually tries to get in here early Monday morning. Because of direct deposit, we have to have everything, we have to have the file to ACH to the bank by 10:30 on Monday morning, which doesn't allow a lot of time if there are issues or if someone forgets to turn their time card in. And I'm sure in the past, when it was just checks being written, this was fine. So what we are proposing is that the end of the pay period stay the same, but give the department heads more time to review the time cards. They are in on Monday, and then payrolls issued on Friday. This would allow, right now, we don't have cross-training. That will change in the future. But right now, the payroll person can't be gone on a payroll Monday. Again, it allows more time for department heads to review the time cards for potential errors or questions. It allows more time to catch potential errors, and it allows for a second set of eyes to review the payroll to make sure it's been inputted correctly. We also had this last payroll, we had an employee that forgot to turn in their time card. And so they have to wait an additional 2 weeks to get paid. So what we're proposing, there are 3 payrolls scheduled for September, and we're proposing moving that payroll scheduled to come out on September 30th. We're proposing moving that to October 4th. So there would be 2 payrolls in September, 2 in October, and then 3 payrolls in November.
I think it's great internal controls. I'm all.
Yeah, I certainly support it. I don't know if I followed, Barb, what you were indicating, the payrolls, that's not changing, right? It's still every 2 weeks, so that's. you're just
Right,
indicating how many
we're
you
not
had.
changing the payroll, we're just changing it the day it comes
You're
out.
gonna receive your check or your payment on a Friday versus. a
Yep,
Monday.
yep.
Mhm.
I am sensitive to people's cash flow status.
Yes,
So what I might offer up is that we graduate this over, maybe it's 4 pay periods. So right now, pay periods on a Monday, maybe we do it Tuesday, the next one's a Wednesday, a Thursday, a Friday, or maybe it's Monday, Wednesday, then a Friday, but just for cash flow reasons. for
right,
employees.
and that's why we chose the last payroll in September, September would normally be a 3 pay period or 3 payrolls. And that's why we chose that one to implement it.
November 3, October be 1.
Yeah, 2 in October, it'd be instead of 3 in September, 2 in October, 2 in November, it would be 2 in September, 2 in October, 3 in November.
I can't speak to everybody's finances. I don't know that people necessarily budget on month monthly basis as much as a
Mhm.
2-week basis.
Well, I think what we looked at, because of the 3 payrolls in September, if the employees know ahead of time, you're still getting 2 checks in September. Most people typically pay bills twice a month, you know, so they just kind of plan that. And then they would end up just a few days into October, they would have money to, start paying those October bills. But like most people, we thought that probably worked the best to just kind of make it happen just 4 days later. We have talked about it with our department heads for the last several weeks. They have shared it with their employees, and we really haven't heard any kickback yet.
We've heard some say, well, that's, my employees aren't going to be happy with it, but no one has come to us to tell us that.
The other solution I would throw out there as an accountant, because I do this for a living, and what we've done when we've changed.
My employees aren't going to be happy with it, but no one has come to us to tell us that.
in essence, to
So,
bridge
so
the
you'd
gap to
have
that
like
one
for your paycheck, you would have like potentially 25% of it on Monday and 75% on Friday for that one.
You put it in as an advance instead of payroll, and then take it out as a payroll deduction on payroll day. So the payroll stays the same. It's just you're
Okay.
giving them an advance to help them out. And I'd be more than happy to sit down with you guys and
Okay.
you're basically giving a payday loan, in essence.
Right, and our deductions are made on a basis of 24 pay periods rather than 26. So whenever there's a third paycheck in the month, there are no deductions for health insurance or other.
And keep in mind, this would be a
Benefits.
one,
Rather than 26. So whenever there's a third paycheck in the month, there are no deductions for health insurance or other.
I was kind of frankly surprised when I got here that we got paid the same day that we turned our time sheets in. I mean, every place I've ever worked, you turn your time cards in on a Monday and you get your paycheck on Friday. Unless Friday's a holiday and then you'll get it Thursday, but yeah, so, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Item D on the work session is an update on the 3 Cs elevator.
I guess we'll
Working?
kind of start. We invited a rep in from Otis, Heather, Kathy, Barb, myself. Was that everybody? I think that was everybody that was there. And we talked about the elevator. And I know Heather has shared that there's some additional work that needs to be done in the future. We did talk with the rep and we said, if we did this kind of work, what kind of life expectancy can we get out of this elevator? And he says, well, your elevator's hasn't been taxed in the years that you've had it. So by doing these couple upgrades, you're probably gonna get another 20 years out of this thing. So then we got on that whole maintenance thing, and right now we pay like $80 or it's around $80 a month for maintenance. And that's what gets them out to do their annual inspection. And I think that's about it. If we have an issue and we call them out, it's $500 an hour from the time they leave until the time they get back. If we bump up our maintenance agreement from $80 to $150 a month, it pretty much covers everything. And if we go to replace these two components that they're recommending that we replace, if something were to happen to those, that's covered by this maintenance agreement. There's no big out-of-pocket expense for the city. So we all kind of sat around and looked at it and said, while we've got, potentially some CIP that we could utilize from some leftover local option tax, but I think between the, I think we all felt that the $150 a month was pretty cheap insurance versus having a $500 hour per trip time that they come out. Along with it, if we do these upgrades, those upgrades then are covered, that if something were to happen to them, it's just part of that maintenance agreement and they take care of fixing it.
That's pretty cheap insurance versus
I mean-
$500.
I mean,
don't
Barb,
Take too many of them.
Heather, am I missing anything out of that conversation, or does that pretty wise sum up what we had talked about with the rep?
Just that we've got to have a working elevator. Down for what, 2 weeks? It affected a lot of people. So having this in place is very important.
But I know that we were asked to kind of take a look at the maintenance, and I think we were all kind of flabbergasted that, for just basically, going from $80 a month to 150, that could save the city a lot of money over the next number of years. But by also making these two upgrades that are going to be necessary because the components are no longer able to be fixed. There's no parts for them.
We did say our elevator is like the cream of the crop type of elevator.
Yeah.
That lasts forever. And do you remember how much you said the new one cost?
It was a minimum starting about 150 grand and on up.
So these parts that you're gonna buy, how expensive are they? Yeah, but I don't recall.
One of them was
every word.
around 19,000 and it was 140 some thousand.
So we're talking, what I'm getting at, you're gonna increase this thing $70 a month
Mhm.
or $840 a year. And if you got a component that goes out, that's the money you're talking.
About spending to
I
upgrade
mean, you could have,
the door
It's like
operator.
$4,200 for the 5 years of it. I was just doing the math on
yeah,
that.
so, and that's what I'm getting at. If you got a $19,000 part that's covered, you've got 20, 25 years of maintenance agreements that you could, in essence, get into to break even.
You've got one, the door is 24,750. And the other one I think was around 19,000.
But that just rough,
19,800,
yeah,
yeah.
rough figures. I'm just looking at it.
You're about $45,000. So by doing that, your elevator should last another 20 years versus purchasing a new one you're gonna start in the ballpark around 150 grand on up.
Correct.
Well, I was just going back, you were
But
talking,
the maintenance,
yeah, you were talking the maintenance
More
agreement
than
would
pays
cover
for-
these
oh,
parts
yeah.
if they went bad again.
Yep.
And so if I got a $19,000 part and I'm paying $4,500 a month,
a
I mean,
year,
or $4,500 a
Yeah,
year
year.
extra cost. If I gotta do this for 20 years, I mean, it's gonna take 20 years of doing that in order to break even on a bad part.
Let's make sure we're talking about this. Maybe make sure I'm understanding this. If we sign this new maintenance agreement today, the $150 a
Yeah.
month one, it will not cover the two parts that are currently
it will not
questionable.
cover those two parts that are questionable. But anytime we call them out for anything, and we've had them out twice this year, and it's $500 a pop for every time they come and they send, is it one or two guys? Yeah.
But I just, you got me confused when you were talking about that. So even if we did buy a brand new one, we still have to have the same service agreement.
No, I'm not looking at a new one. What I'm saying is if we take this extra $70 a month, which is $840 a year, additional cost to have a service agreement, and you got a $19,000 part that is broken now. If I have to replace that $19,000 part at $740 a year, I can have a lot of years of maintenance agreements before I break even with the part is what I'm looking at. Does that help clarify that?
I
Yeah,
just wanted to make
we're
sure.
looking at that, but we're also looking at that $500 an hour. And when they come
Yeah.
out from Des Moines, it's typically, it's a minimum of about $2,000 from the time they leave to get back.
Well, and just take a look at it. You're doing $70 extra a month for 12 months.
Yeah.
That's $840. And if you got guy coming out at $500 for one trip, you basically have covered your maintenance
For
agreement
the
with
year.
one trip.
Yep, absolutely.
And you still get extra parts if parts are
Yeah.
needed.
And this is a full bumper to bumper warranty, if you will, zero deductible. If we pay this $150 a month, there will
We
never
will-
be another
we'll-
expense.
We'll verify that.
Okay, you don't want to ask.
Before we bring it back,
Yeah.
but yeah. But I mean, when we talked, he made it sound like that if, you replace these parts, then you're pretty much covered for that $150 a month.
motor goes out, whatever the most expensive part is, we're still covered.
We will verify that.
Yeah, because I'm looking at that, if that's the case, it's like, holy bucket, you'd be silly not to spend the money.
That's kind
One-
of, that's kind of what we were thinking.
One thing to clarify, John, because you mentioned a year, it is a 5-year duration. I still think the value's there because you're at $4,200. So
But if we're,
one part will cover it or a couple visits will cover it, but
but if he's coming out at least once a year that we're having to pay $500 and you're paying $740, we're only out $240 a year. So,
We'll do a little more digging before we come back and make a recommendation. But we just kind of wanted to share what we had found at this point
I
because you
think it's
had
diggable
asked about maintenance.
or to look at it.
Okay, thank you very much. Item E on the work session this evening is regarding a potential credential incentive
Yep.
for pool operators.
I had gone back in November of 2018, the city came up with this credential incentive that was included in your packet that covers grade 1 through 4 for water treatment, distribution, wastewater. We've got a fee, there's extra money for herbicide, stormwater certification, trenching and shoring, all the way down to credentialing for IMFOA certification, planning credential, AICP. So when this was put together, the city did not have a pool, did not have a splash pad. But by getting the splash pad and the type of pad that we are putting in with the recirculating, they basically have to have the certified pool operator, which is the same thing that you would have whether you operated a pool or a splash pad with the recirculation. So we kind of felt like we have paid some sort of an incentive to folks to be licensed to do these things. We kind of looked at it and talked about it. I was kind of leaning on kind of what would be like a grade 1, like a $900 for getting a certified pool operator. I'm not looking at the 1,200 like a 2, 3, or 4. And the reason that I stuck with the 1 is like on a 2, 3, and 4, you typically have to have a grade 1 and you got to have several years of experience in that classification before you can move up. The certified pool operator, I think that license is good for, is it 3 years, 5 years now? Used to be 3, okay. So it's 5 years. But we did have 2 individuals that have already gone. They've taken it was a 2-day class. They had to pass an exam with, I believe it was 70%, which is no different than taking a wastewater or water license to get their certification. And they were both very successful in getting that accomplished. So they'll be ready to go when the splash pad opens up. There was talk that we will train some other folks to be able to do some of these things. We don't have to have a ton of people certified as a CPO. As long as we have a couple that can basically kind of sign off, it'd be no different than like for a wastewater plant, if you got a grade 3 plant, you got to have at least 1 grade 3 to be able to sign off on people doing some of that other work and certifying it. So
Just to clarify, nobody else can act out those. only property owners.
Right. It would be yeah, but they can do the testing on the weekend that is necessary a certain number of times. I think it's every 4 hours that you gotta test it, so.
So I would say no to the A1 classification, say probably lower than that. Because it's seasonal, 4 hours, grade 1 is all year round. Education and testing for grade 1 is a lot more than 2 days. So I would put it more around the $600.
I can live with 600.
Okay, got some 600, one discussion item here. Any other thoughts on that or dollars? Anybody wants to throw out there? 600?
I'm not knowledgeable enough about all the certifications up there to be able to compare one to the other as far as dollar amounts. So I'm gonna have to defer to somebody with more knowledge in that arena.
I can see your point, Rory, that it is kind of a seasonal thing, so I could go with the 600. I
Did
think
the,
that's fair.
And we're only talking $300.
does the employee incur the cost to do the training? Like when I got my
No.
PALs and CDO?
No.
Okay,
We pay,
That
I mean,
seems reasonable.
all of our employees, we pay to get them educated and trained and pay for their licenses once they get them, so.
Okay, 600, Dave.
600, I will prepare a change for your next meeting to add that to this list and we'll go with 600. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Need a motion to adjourn. A motion by Mr. Rigler. I have a second by Ms. Roberts. All those in favor, please respond with aye.
I-
All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you.
Ooh, I got time to go home and eat before I can't.